Hello everyone, this is part 9 of What If Naruto Had a Hug That Changed Everything, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Enjoy. For Narasaku no Anko, the trip back to their resting point was as smooth as silk, and, for the females of the group, it was most enjoyable thanks to a certain male that has become somewhat of a fascination to them all, not just because of the alluring scent of pure manliness, but also because of the demonstration of cunning that was displayed earlier. Needless to say, Naruto has definitely proved himself among his current female company. One of the girls, the Junin squad leader to be exact, was the one having the most trouble coming to terms with the undeniable heat that was building within the center of her body as she tree-hopped to the resting point. In case you weren't paying any attention, it was Anko. As they jolted along, Anko constantly found herself edging closer to Naruto because of the scent that he was giving off. Of course she would realize this sooner or later and grow the distance between them, before she would do it again to enjoy the manly smell that assaulted her senses in the best possible way. Damn it, Anko. What the hell is wrong with you? He's just a kid who probably just lucked out in the plan that he developed to retrieve Ashima, and in no way can smell this good. He's only 12 and probably doesn't even realize why he's practically being suffocated by all of us. He's dense and far too hyperactive, but he smells so good. Anko fought with herself, trying to destroy the notion of her actually being attracted to a boy that was twice as young as she was. Eventually, she couldn't take it anymore. Anko increased her speed to an even greater height and yelled back at the other genin to keep up with her. Sure, Ino and Sakura may have struggled a bit, but unfortunately for Anko, Naruto's newly acquired speed paved the road for that possibility with pure and abundant ease. Once again, poor Anko was bombarded with that intoxicating aroma. Eventually, Ino and Sakura caught up with the two, wondering what the acceleration was for. Damn. Persistent little punk, Anko thought bitterly to herself, before kicking her speed up a few more notches, leaving the other genin in the dust. That's effing fast. Naruto started to think the worst, man. Ashima-san must be worse off than I thought. Better keep up with Anko so we can get there in time, Naruto thought before cranking his own augmented speed on par with Anko's. Ino and Sakura both gained looks of sheer confusion and overwhelmed exasperation as they tried to keep up with the others, but when they saw Anko practically vanish, their jaws nearly fell off of their skulls. They were even more surprised that Naruto did the same thing with speeds that they thought were incapable for him. They looked at each other for a brief moment before attempting, once again, to keep up with their fellow shinobi, so not to be left behind. Anko had a rather triumphant smirk on her face as she thought she had finally lost the brat with the fantastic scent. Of course her happiness didn't last very long when she inhaled that same damnable smell. Looking to her left, Anko saw the source and was immediately blown away. What? How did he? He shouldn't be able to keep up with me. Grr, that damn smell, Anko inwardly cursed, before glaring at the blonde ninja. Why do you keep following me? Go bother someone else. Naruto shifted a very curious glance to his Junin squad leader. Whoa. Anko, what's the matter? He asked. Anko's glare deepened as she growled, I said get away from me with your stench, already. It's driving me nuts. What? Ya got corn in your ears? Run on the ground or something and leave me alone, she barked. Blinking twice after hearing this, Naruto suddenly frowned. For some odd reason, being spoken to like that really pissed him off. Something was out of place though. Naruto could tell that much. He'd never get as pissed as he was getting now over something like this. The boy was talked down to all his life, even after he graduated from the academy, and he either brushed it off, gave the asshole the finger or retorted with words of his own. This time, however, Naruto was getting really heated, a new phenomenon, that much was certain, but at that moment, the blonde genin wasn't in the mood to dwell on any reason for what he was about to do. Well, damn. What the hell's your problem? I thought that Ashima-san's condition was getting worse. No need to bite my head off. Geez. Naruto retorted. Oh, hell, no. Anko shifted a somewhat mouse glare to the blonde kitsune, who almost immediately caught it. What did you just say? She said in an obviously threatening tone. Did I just hear you talk to me like that, you little punk? Naruto sneered. Okay, B. I don't know who the hell shoved a stick up your ass and twisted it, but don't take it out on me, he spat. Hearing these words come out of the mouth of a genin who actually used to be afraid of her, a feeling that she hasn't been subjected to in a long time, coursed through her. For the first time in a long time, Anko felt that her dominance was challenged. Alright, keep talking ya little s and see what happens, Anko steadily warned, as she averted her sight in the direction in front of her. Naruto impulsively scoffed. Oh, right. Let me guess, this is supposed to be the part where I'm intimidated, right? He mocked with youthful abandon. No. Anko said flatly, this is. With that last word, the Junin dropped Ashima on a branch and quickly lunged at Naruto in a blinding flash. Flying a ways away, Anko slammed Naruto into a tree trunk and pinned him. With his feet hanging off of the ground and the sharpened edge of a kunai held to his tea, Naruto clenched his teeth as adrenaline pumped through his veins. Word to the wise, kid. Never talk like that to a Junin, especially me, or you'll find yourself in situations like this, got that? Anko steadily threatened with an unsettling smile on her face. Hearing this, Naruto viciously glared at the Junin, but his head was pushed back against the tree at the slightest bit of movement. Little bastard. You're lucky if I don't KO you right now, Anko mocked while licking her lips with a sadistic grin. From out of nowhere, Anko felt another presence from right behind her. You'd better be very sure, Anko, the voice of Naruto sounded from behind her. The brunette's eyes widened greatly at her current situation. Behind her was a king-poised Naruto with a kunai pointed RIGHT in the center of her back. Sure, it was something that a Junin of her caliber could easily slip out of, but that was far from the point. There's no way. How could he have? She started to wonder, until realization hit her. Anko shot her vision to the body that she had pinned to the tree, but he smiled and vanished within a puff of smoke. The purple-haired kunoichi frowned and lowered her arms. Yeah, that's what I thought, Naruto mocked. Only mere seconds later, Ino and Sakura arrived at the scene and gasped at what they saw. Naruto. What are you doing? Sakura exclaimed. Naruto's eyes took the shape of marbles as he bared comical fangs. Talk to this bee. She's the one who up and tackled me to a tree, he shouted. Ino looked at Anko incredulously. What? Why would she attack Naruto? She thought. Before things could drag on any longer, Naruto's facial expression hardened before he immediately jumped back, avoiding the wrath of two brown snakes showing from beneath the branch. Landing only a few feet away, Naruto's glare hardened even more. Anko turned around and returned Naruto's glare, retracting the shadow snakes. There, they stood, staring each other down in an unusual display of animosity. Sparks of tension clashed, as Ino and Sakura were getting very uneasy from the situation. Before things got too damn hairy, which it really looked like, Sakura decided to step in. Hey, you guys, don't fight, we're supposed to be team, she tried to interject. Naruto and Anko exchanged the death glares toward each other again for what seemed like an eternity, before the blonde genin turned his back and walked away with a loud rumph. Of course, Anko repeated the grunt and turned back simply to face the tree trunk, putting her hands on her hips. Thoughts of adversity riddled both of their minds, as the distance between them increased. Anko sneered as her back was turned. Little freak, she said under her breath. Naruto walked closer and closer to the edge of the branch. Psycho B, he whispered. Right before Naruto jumped to another branch, both shinobi spun on a dime and relished the glare. The F did you say? They both yelled in unison, before they simultaneously ran at each other, stopping face to face. You've got a problem, punk, Anko barked. Yeah, she smells like men's underwear and has a fishnet addiction, Naruto retorted, getting growling rise out of the Junin. That was it. Before Anko and Naruto could go at each other's TS, Ino and Sakura zipped between them and held them back as they exchanged curses and insults. You defiant PES-OS. You'd better not go to sleep tonight, you hear me? You better not go to sleep, Anko threatened, while blindly trying to claw her way past Sakura. Naruto repeated those attempts. Why? So you won't give in to the temptation of taking your sweet advantages, Yasha B, he responded with equal vigor. Anko actually flinched back and a small blush crossed her face. She blinked twice before frowning angrily. FFU, Anko shouted, as Ino was becoming growingly successful in pushing Naruto back. Everyone knows you want to, Naruto yelled, before Ino attempted to calm him down. Unable to help it, Anko's blush deepened as she sneered intently at Naruto. Where do you get the balls? She angrily grumbled under her breath, while clenching her teeth. You ain't touchin' my goose, Naruto responded from a completely different branch thanks to his heightened hearing. Hours later, nightfall came. Back at the enemy camp that was robbed of their prisoner, the same large and frightening man who ordered his squad of rogue nin to track down the intruders and kill them, stood in the exact same spot since he'd given the order. Now, with his katana resheathed and his arms crossed in pure irritation, the form of dominance waited patiently for them to return, which they would do right about. Sir. Now, the Dark Leader never turned to face the nin who owned the voice, but he could tell that the remaining 9 of his troops had indeed returned. Sir. The voice of the same rogue called out, marching closer to his boss, Sir. We weren't able to track them down. It would appear that they got our. Before he even had a chance to finish, the ruthless leader spun his upper body around and backhanded the poor ninja with such a degree of ungodly might, that his head completely shattered to pieces that were immediately shredded into nothing but chunks of human brain and skull that soared across the air, saturating the other startled ninja. The other nin trembled horribly at witnessing this level of brutality, as the body of their now deceased comrade shook and spazzed wildly before finally hitting the ground, lifeless. The shadowy man kept his back turned and his arm extended, clinching his large bruised fist together to continually crack his knuckles so he could let his underlings know just how pissed off he was. And he did a damn good job. You idiots, he growled with mouse intent, I can't believe that each and every one of you fell for, snaps his fingers, this. At those last words, the very form of reality itself began to warp and shift, until it snapped back into exactly the way it looked before. A simple genjutsu, and none of you could see through it, he growled again, before unsheathing his katana, getting a panicked rise out of his subordinates. I warned you all, of the terms of punishment, should you fail me. All of the doomed rogue nin huddled together and trembled pathetically at what would become of them, but that didn't stop a few from trying to squirm their way out of this predicament. Wait. Please, sir, just give us another chance. We won't fail you again, one of them begged. Unfortunately, that only made the man slowly turn around and start marching up to the huddled ninja. I know. I'll see to that personally, he coldly retorted. Please, we've been loyal to you, for over 3 years. You can't do this, another rogue pleaded. The frightening man smiled. Oh, I can't I? Have you forgotten who I am, and what I do for a living, you worms? He mocked, before engulfing his sword in pure black chakra. The rogue nin were so frozen in their terror that the most they did was snivel and beg for their worthless lives, doing things as degrading as declaring their unworthiness and like that. This, of course, was not working, and soon the ominous form of wrath and dominance loomed over them like a cloud of impending death. I never give second chances to pathetic slime such as yourself. Now he silently hushed before lifting his super-powered sword over his head. Slash. Cleave. Gash. In time, after multiple screams of pure agony and unabolished terror, the remains of the rogue nin were scattered throughout the entire area. Many blood-saturated chunks of human meat and limbs hugged the forested area. Not a single one of the cadavers could be remotely recognized, and not without good reason, I mean seriously. The dark mare stood at the center of the S-Fest as he started to glow a brilliant white glow. Hunger, he growled, before his eyes took on a shade of blood red. Suddenly the blood-painted area slowly leaked into its original look, as the human fluids converged unto the man himself. The blood broke into several swirling streams, circling the beastly man. The dark mare slowly and slightly lifted his arms as the many streams of human blood shirred and spilled into his mouth. The disturbingly sickening gulping noises echoed through the eerie silence of the area, as the beast of a man devoured his otherwise deathly meal. After 2 whole minutes of gulping down the human liquids, the man lowered his arms and head, trails of excess blood running down the sides of his mouth. With one last, loud and sickening, an obnoxious belch escaped his lungs, before his super gruff-toned voice hummed a mal-satisfied growl. Not bad, but could have used a little more sue, he said, before a slimy inhumanely long tongue sn out of his mouth and lapped up the trails of blood on his mouth. Nekoshi. Kitsune. At these yelled, two more shadowed figures appeared from out of absolutely nowhere beside the dominant man. Still the same vindictive son of AB you always were, ha, the female figure said smoothly. And this surprises you, Kitsune, the manly voice of Nekoshi commented. The blood-devouring man hummed to himself, 20 years. It's been 20 long years since I've been active. My hunger is great, he said in a somewhat weakened demeanor. Well, you're not too far from that, what was it again? Village hidden in the sound. Why don't you quench your hunger there, Kitsune suggested. Meanwhile, we can do what you called us to do, sensei, Nekoshi finished. The dark leader smiled to himself, I'm glad I didn't kill you too. Very well, then, you know what to do. We must prevent Ashima from informing the Leaf Village of the organization, he said in a quietly dark and low tone of voice. Hi. The voices of Nekoshi and Kitsune shouted in perfect unison, before vanishing in a burst of unimaginable speed. The blood-devouring man hummed to himself, 20 years. It's been 20 long years since I've been active. My hunger is great, he said in a somewhat weakened demeanor. Well, you're not too far from that, what was it again? Village hidden in the sound. Why don't you quench your hunger there, Kitsune suggested. Meanwhile, we can do what you called us to do, sensei, Nekoshi finished. The dark leader smiled to himself, I'm glad I didn't kill you too. Very well, then, you know what to do. We must prevent Ashima from informing the Leaf Village of the organization, he said in a quietly dark and low tone of voice. Hi. The voices of Nekoshi and Kitsune shouted in perfect unison, before vanishing in a burst of unimaginable speed. Back at the Rikyu point, no longer hidden with a genjutsu produced by Anko, the Konoha squad set up camp to treat the visibly shaken and awakened Ashima Karatsune, but also to rest themselves. With a warmer and more comfortable blanket wrapped around her body and a warm wet cloth over her forehead, the black-haired young woman stared up into the dark star-lit sky, relieved and eternally grateful to the brave shinobi who risked their lives to save her from him. Anko knelt in front of her, while keeping an eye out for trouble. After treating the girl's wounds, Anko decided to leave all questioning aside, until the girl was well rested. That would probably take a while, considering the absolute hell she must have endured. Still, Anko couldn't help but be surprised that Ashima was still alive. After all, she was taken prisoner by a squad of rogue nin and a tyrant that was thought to be years ago. Truth be told, Anko could hardly believe it, but here she was, staring at the young woman who must have been unimaginably strong to endure such a soul-skewering hell. Ino and Sakura had already fallen to sleep in their own sleeping bags. They were peacefully at rest next to each other without a care in the world. Of course, getting to that state involved a lot tolerance, with Naruto staring at them both with a mucho serious expression on his face. They weren't able to tell whether or not it was because he was tentatively keeping a close eye on them or just plain glaring the F out of them. All they did know was that they didn't have to worry much about anyone else finding them with Naruto keeping a hawk's eye on them. It made him feel safe. However, unbeknownst to his female companions, Naruto, who was sitting on the branch of a tall tree with his red jacket back on, was staring at them with uncertainty and uneasiness in his broken heart, despite masterfully hiding it. Looking at both of them, painfully reminded him of the dark times between them. A combination of memories and heartache that made Naruto sad, so very sad. Looking at Ino brought back more than that, however, it brought back a certain anger that he felt for the blonde kunoichi, an anger that was felt during his childhood, a pain that he has never forgotten. Flashback out of. Young Naruto and all of the other kids had been released for recess. For the blonde boy, finding his new and absolute best friend, Sakura was the first and pretty much the entire damn point of it all. They had made a promise area for themselves, a spot to which they would always meet before and after recess. Naruto eagerly ran to meet his new pink-haired bundle of joy only to find an empty spot. What a thing drag. Of course, that didn't stop the young blonde from sitting down under the tree atop the hill and waiting himself. As he sat there, he inwardly lavished at the idea of having someone to call his own. Sakura was his first. As time passed by, however, Naruto's euphoria dulled out, because Sakura never showed up. He just sat there, waiting for her, but nothing happened. Eventually, a few minutes before they were all summoned back to class, Naruto was about to just get up and leave. That is, until his presence was darkened by a shadow. Before he actually looked up to see who owned the shadow, a painfully familiar voice spat out his name in disgust. That voice shot a sharp pain through his heart, as he knew exactly who it was. Naruto hesitated to even look up now. Hey, up here, freak, the cold female voice called out. Naruto's expression saddened as he did just that. Being the one who was still desperate for friends, Naruto tried his damnedest to crack a smile. Hi Ino, he hesitated. Young Ino scoffed, don't talk to me like you know me. Do you have any idea what you did yesterday? She harshed her words. Naruto's smile immediately vanished at hearing Ino's words, yesterday. What? What did I? Don't try to play innocent, you loser. Sakura's in pain because of you, the blonde girl shouted. Naruto flinched back, Sakura-chan. What did I do? Is she okay? He asked with unchallenged concern. That's none of your business. But if you must know, that kiss you gave her yesterday really messed her up. She's been crying all day because of you, Ino spat. Hearing this, Naruto was unpleasantly surprised. He tried to think back on the reaction that Sakura had after he had kissed her irisile forehead. To what he could recall, she cried while saying his name a notable amount of times, before rising to her feet and running away. Thinking a bit more on it, Naruto lowered his head in shame. Is she really that upset? Because of me? He asked. Ino was silent as she frowned at the trembling boy. She knelt down, grabbed him by his hair and lifted his head up to face her. Exactly. Now just be a good boy and keep your diseased lips off of her. Or if you really want to make her happy, you can just crawl in a corner and Now doesn't that sound like a kick in the ass? She mocked. Naruto's facial expression became broken and sorrowful. Why? Why are you all so mean to me? What did I ever? The poor blonde boy wasn't able to finish his sentence when a watery serving of saliva hit the center of his face. Naruto reflexibly turned his head away, while covering his face and sobbing. Ino harshly pushed his head back against the tree before rising to her feet and turning her back to walk away. Just can it, stay away from Sakura, and sit there, ya loser, she said before walking back to class, seen as how it was that time. End flashback out of. While remembering that dark moment of his childhood, Naruto unconsciously crossed his arms, tightening his grip upon one of them when he remembered how rotted Ino was to him. Nay, how every one of the kids, including Sakura, had started to treat him after that day. Naruto was filled with even more anger towards himself, though. To him, Sakura's reaction to that first kiss was somewhat of a fascination to the blonde genin. The fact that she started to ignore, insult and hit him on a constant scale only leaned him more upon the idea that she was playing a serious game of hard to get. However, the events of yesterday had made things very clear. Very clear, indeed. I was such an idiot, Naruto thought to himself, it was so obvious. I never paid any attention to it because I was so hung up on trying to have her. I thought it was a game, a test to see if I had what it took to be hers. I never realized that I completely ruined a good friendship from the get-go by doing something so stupid. No, I just kept plowing forward, like a stupid child. Naruto continued to curse himself while slowly drifting to sleep with his troubled memories. Of course, now he knew that he had the courage and the chances to set things right. He had already swallowed any and all fear of confronting Sakura and apologized to the pink-haired female about what he had done to her. And now, he had the chance to finally confront Ino after all of these years. And he would take it without hesitation when the time came. As these thoughts pursued, Naruto felt his eyes getting heavier and heavier. The memories of what he had endured had become something of a lullaby to the now shaggy-haired blonde. With the world around him becoming nothing more than a blur of light and darkness, he finally drifted to sleep with his arms remaining crossed. Ashima had finally been able to fall asleep normally without losing consciousness, much to Anko's relief. The ex-prisoner's wounds would definitely heal, thanks to Anko's care. All she needed was more rest and a trip to the hospital when they got back to Konoha. With her being the only person away, Anko decided to keep a lookout for any kind of trouble. Of course, about 10 minutes into that, a familiar spark of anger wallowed up inside of her, as a memory of what happened earlier today coursed its way through her mind. Frowning, Anko found her place, standing on a tall rock. The rest of her squad sleeping behind her. Anko turned her head to her left and looked up to see Naruto resting on a high tree branch. At first her frown deepened, however, upon looking at the boy further, Anko found herself smiling at his mysterious ferocity. At first it just pissed her the hell off because of the gall that she had to deal with, but thinking more of it, she knows that it's exactly that kind of attitude that makes a grand leader, and Naruto demonstrated it without fail. Feeling a rush of sudden pride wash over her, Anko returned to her scouting after one last thought. He'd make one hell of an Hokage, she thought. Out of. 3 hours passed by. Naruto was still in a peaceful slumber. All seemed well and in place. The blonde genin slowly slid off of the branch and landed on his head. Shooting up immediately with a comical look of shock and alert. What the? He exclaimed as he shot to his feet and vigorously whipped his head from left to right, trying to grasp his surroundings through his sleep-written haze. Despite his disposition, Naruto noticed something out of place. Notably being the fact that Ino and Sakura were not in their sleeping bags. To say the least, Naruto was curious, something that always seemed to get him in some sort of trouble or hilarious predicament. Well, hilarious to us, to so much for him. Anyway, the black-clothed ninja's face grew serious and aware, as he cleared his thoughts and focused his new senses. Doing this he heard a scream, more like a grunt of someone struggling. Immediately picking up the direction from whence it came, Naruto instinctively followed the constant grunts and curses. Naruto could feel that he had stayed far from the camp as he tracked the source of the commotion, but he was far too intent on figuring out who owned the voices. As he traveled further into the forest, the noises became louder, clearer and more familiar. The grunting and occasional screaming made him as curious as it made him edgy, but he pursued the noises. Eventually, after pushing his way through the thick collaboration of vegetation, Naruto came across an open spot in the forest, a smoothly flowing river coursing throughout the ground, with the beautiful night sky clearly visible without the trees blocking the wonderful view. However, that is not what caught Naruto's attention. At the center of his vision, he saw a white tent, a tent that seemed to be the source of the noises that drew him to this place. Only now, the noises were perfectly recognizable, and not just a little questioning. Oh, God yes, harder Sakura, harder, the raspy voice of Ino shouted out, causing Naruto's eyes to widen with surprise and confusion. Oh yeah, you know how to take it, don't you, B? The equally raspy voice of Sakura yelled afterwards. Naruto's eyes squinted as he tried to make out what he was hearing. Deciding to walk closer to the tent as carefully and steadily as possible, the blonde boy started to hear what sounded like skin slapping upon skin at an unusually high pace. The noise itself piqued Naruto's curiosity even more, as he noticed the tent start to move around, a lot. Come on, Ino. Whose bee are you? Sakura demanded with heat blowing through her voice. Whose dirty little bee are you? Yours. I'm your dirty little bee. God. FMEEEEEE, Ino cried out. Naruto heard these highly disturbing words as he stood in front of the tent, plastering a comically widened-eyed gape. The distinctive noises continued as Naruto listened in pure and absolute horror. ARG. You fable little slut. When I'm finished with you, I'll get Naruto over here, so he can join the fun, Sakura hollered as she continued her concealed ministrations. ROF. That'll be so hot. Yeah. Get his ass over here after you done rockin' my hot little virgin natch, Ino responded with her own bellow of euphoric ecstasy. Hearing, Naruto finally snapped. He ran to the opening of the tent and nearly sped it open. What hell are you girls doing? He shouted with vigor, before his eyes fell into the shape of tiny black dots, as his nostril drew a thin trail of blood. Sakura gasped with delight. There he is, she exclaimed. Get him, Ino shouted as well. Before had the time to shake out of the daze he had just lost himself in, 4 silky and slender arms reach over and clutched onto his head. Quote. Leave me alone, Naruto frightfully warned, with a trembling uneasy voice, before he was viciously yanked into the tent, head first. The blonde boy screamed bloody M as his 2 teammates started to do weird and terrifying things to him. Come on, Naruto. Take it off. WRAAAAHAAAA. What are doing? Get off of me. The tent was now the closest thing you'd ever find as a circus, as the horrified screams of Naruto echoed throughout the forest area. In a desperate attempt to escape the ritualistic horrors that were being done to him, a clothes-tattered Naruto tried to crawl out of the tent on his stomach with a uber-frightened look on his face. Unfortunately, he was pulled right back in, where the girlish giggles of his freaky teammates meshed with the sounds of his screams and protests. Out of. Back in the plane of reality. Naruto shot his eyes wide open, as his torso pressed against the trunk of the tree he was still sleeping on, driving his fingers into the wood. He screamed in horror, waking up all the others. Ino. Waaaaaah. Sakura. Nyaaaaaah. Ashima. Maaaaaaah. Kyubi. Baaaaaaah. Why? Why is everybody screaming? Scared me half to death. With impeccable timing, Anko rushed to the fray with a kunai ready for King Thing. What? Who SD? She yelled only to see nothing out of the ordinary, except for all of the other girls shooting confused looks at Naruto, whose face looked like it just came off the back of a horror video with his fingers still buried in the trunk of the tree. With their position most likely exposed because of a certain someone. The Konoha squad was forced to finish the long haul, as not to fall prey to enemy forces and whatnot. Although the majority of the group was slightly relieved that they were able to get some rest, Naruto was still visibly shaken by that nightmare he had. His body was still suffering under a fit of random convulsions. As they quickly zipped through the trees, with Ashima hanging on the back of Anko herself, was very pissed off at what had just happened. For all she knew, the enemy could be breathing down their NS right now and they could be totally unaware of it. Sakura and Ino, however, were still a bit startled and a little worried about Naruto. They deduced that he must have awoke from a horrible nightmare. Of course, that didn't prevent a certain boil of anger to rise out of both of them when they were disturbed. Ashima, well, she hasn't really said much of anything since they rescued her, but who could really blame her? The girl went through hell and is still alive to tell all. To Anko, that was the best part about the mission. Sweet success. They were getting very close to Kono now, and while hopping along the trees the shy and timid Ashima finally said something. May the gods be praised, she can talk. Thank you, she cracked out, for rescuing me. The Konoha squad was a bit surprised, but grateful that they at least got a thanks from the person who they have broken the backs to save. They all gave a delayed smile in return. Hey, don't worry about it, he said with that groomed touch of boyish charm, but don't thank us yet. We still gotta get you to Konoha. Ashima smiled as she started to feel safer than ever, but she also knew that she couldn't get too comfortable. After all, those freaks could come back and try to take her back, little does she know, they're S. Seeing Ashima's smile, Naruto felt a feeling of pride, a job well done. That's what he thought, Guess the old man was onto something when he sent us out as a team. Who knew, he thought proudly to himself, before a familiar itch in the back of his brain started acting up. Wow, Kit, you are such a horn dog, Kyubi mocked dryly. And cue the zone out. Say what? What, horn dog? Oh, come off it, Kit. That dream you had about your blonde and pink-haired mates didn't convince me of the whole innocent routine, so you can stop now. My dream. You. Kyubi, you do know that's an invasion of privacy, right? Kyubi's eyes twitched. I can't help it. Do you have any idea how tiresome it is to be subjected to insomnia-inducing images of you and your sickening dreams night after night? I bet you want to tackle each and every one of the females here and fornicate them until they curl up in a ball and beg for mercy. Oog. I just made myself sick. Okay, Fox. First off, no. Second, you're freaking crazy. And third, just a damn minute. What you mean, mates? Naruto, look out. Huh. Naruto snapped out of his haze only to have his face meet the broad side of a tree with such force, due to the speed he was going, that his entire body whipped forward, flipping numerous times at a super high speed before the frontal end of his body hit the large trunk of another tree, where he slowly slid down. Out of. Plummeting to the ground, Naruto landed on his back with a hard thud, before he shot up to a sitting position and started caressing his aching face. Ow, 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 www, he lamented. As quickly as they saw this, Naruto's teammates quickly assembled around him, kneeling down next to him for aid. Naruto, are you alright? The nearly high-pitched voice of Sakura squealed. The blonde shinobi took a second to compose himself, before staggering to his own feet. Yeah, I think I'm good, he said. Sure, you kinda flailed around a bit, Ino pressed with concern, before Sakura and herself rose to their feet as well. Naruto finally stood tall, running his hand through his hair in exasperation. Don't worry about me. Let's just get Ashima-san to Konoha, so we can. Not so fast, the voice of Anko called out, before she appeared in front of the trio with Ashima still on her back. We'd better get your nose checked out. Naruto blinked. My nose. Well, what's wrong with my SPLOOUUUSSSHHH? Before Naruto finished his sentence, a large and unruly amount of blood gushed from his nose, causing him to flinch and all of the girls, minus Anko, to scream. Naruto tried to stop the blood flow by putting his hand to his nose, but for some reason that only made things worse. Naruto cursed, as he tilted his head back. Acting quickly, Anko turned around with her back turned to Sakura. Here, you two take care of Ashima and go on ahead, while I treat his nose. If you two run into any sort of trouble, you contact one of us by radio, got it? She ordered. Sakura was in doubt for a minute before she sternly nodded and took Ashima, who clutched her arm and legs to her back. Hang on tight, she told the young brunette. Disappearing from sight, Sakura and Ino left Anko to treat Naruto's wound. Turned out, he had a severely broken nose. You know what? I don't even know why I called it treatment, when all Anko did was walked up to Naruto, grab his nose and snap it back in place. Gaining a predictable scream from the blonde genin, Anko smiled deviously as Naruto held his burning nose. Damn, what was that for? He asked while glaring at the Junin with dots for pupils. That was for back-talking me, earlier, she responded. Naruto lowered his hands and scoffed. Are you still hung up about that? Honestly, I don't know what your problem is, but why can't you Juanumim? Before Naruto was even able to continue his rant, Anko lounged forward and brutally devoured the young genin's lips in a heated and overly passionate kiss, pinning him to the tree as she did so. To say that Naruto was flabbergasted would be the understatement of the millennium. The black-dressed ninja placed his hands on the first spot that came up and pushed her back. What the? And that's also for back-talking me, you little savage, she viciously cooed. You've got a lot o' balls talking to me like that, but I liked it. The stare that Anko was giving Naruto now was definitely different from all of the other times. Her eyes were full of something that he had never really seen so much of, and definitely not something he'd expect to see from the woman. Desire. You crazy little psycho bee. Get away fro. Naruto felt the palms of his hands, which were still holding her back, mounting something soft and a little fluffy. He immediately looked down and saw that he was fondling both of Anko's BS. With his face turning an immediate shade of pure red, Naruto flailed back with his mouth wide open, about to protest, when Anko lounged forward and relished the brutal lip lock, causing Naruto's arms to whip around in every direction. Things didn't get any less complicated when the brunette Junin inserted her tongue to deepen the ridiculous kiss. Pulling back, Anko kept Naruto's head against the tree, breathing down upon his chin. Admit it. You're a beast, she yelled before devouring the poor young ninja again. Naruto finally regained control in his hands to grasp Anko's head and pull her away. You be, he cursed. Unfortunately for Naruto, that little outburst only made Anko really hot, as she grasped him by his jacket and threw him onto the ground, before she slipped out of her large trench coat and her short skirt, revealing her sleek and well-toned body, hugged by all that delicious-looking fishnet. Show me what kind of a beast you really are, she commanded before pouncing upon Naruto, who screamed in horror. Out of. Back in the plain reality. Naruto's eyes nearly bulged out of his head when he woke up from yet another horrible nightmare. Nay, this one be a night terror. Naruto, DAAH. Ino, WAAH. Sakura, Nya. Anko, GAAH. Ashima, MAAH. Kyubi, BAAH. Everyone was startled at the sudden outburst of the formerly unconscious blonde boy on the ground, as he spun right to life and somehow pulled his body off the ground and onto the tree. NOOO. All of you stay away from me, Naruto hollered from the tree. All of the females in the group looked at each other. Maybe he hit his head too hard on that branch, Ino suggested. No, you're not giving me head. All of you, with your deeply ritualistic methods are positively and undoubtedly sick, Naruto raved on. Naruto get down fro. Sick. Have you completely lost eye? Sick. Calm down before. Sick. Ramen. C. Keep the ramen out of this. X. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.